The galaxy watched in silence as Earth burned. Billions of lives ended in minutes. The proud blue planet that once glowed like a jewel in the dark now hung quiet, covered in smoke and fire. The news spread fast across the stars. Humanity had surrendered. Every world in the Galactic Council celebrated. For centuries, they had feared humans, their fast rise, their endless wars, their strange ability to adapt. And now, they were finished. The Council of 10 Worlds called an emergency session to make it official, the complete surrender of the human race. The great hall of the Galactic Court floated above a dying red star. Massive stone walls glowed with energy fields. Thousands of alien rulers sat on crystal thrones, whispering and laughing. At the center stood a small, lonely platform with a single chair. That was where humanity's representative would sit. No one expected anything interesting. The war was over. Humanity was defeated. When the human ship arrived, the aliens laughed again. It was old, scratched, and barely working. From it stepped one man. He was not a soldier, not a general. No armor, no guards, no weapon. Just a simple gray suit and a calm face. His eyes, however, were cold and sharp. The guards scanned him for weapons. Nothing. They let him walk to the center of the hall. "State your name," the High Chancellor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Elias Kane," the man replied quietly. His voice was calm, steady, almost too calm for a man whose world had just died. The Chancellor smiled. "Elias Kane, representative of the extinct species known as humanity. You come to confirm your surrender." A wave of laughter filled the hall. Some aliens banged their staffs on the floor, mocking applause. Others shouted insults. "Primitive monkeys. Warm-blooded beasts. Finally, the plague of Earth ends." Elias did not react. He stood perfectly still, hands folded in front of him. He waited until the noise died. Then he said softly, "Before we begin, check rule number 1. The laughter stopped for a moment. The Chancellor blinked. "What rule?" Elias looked up, meeting the Chancellor's many eyes. "Rule number 1 of the Galactic Accord. The rule your ancestors wrote when the first alliance was formed. You remember it, don't you?" The Chancellor frowned. Around the room, murmurs rose. Some of the older rulers whispered to one another. "Rule number 1. Does he mean?" Elias smiled slightly. "It says, no race may claim dominion over another until it has understood its full potential. Tell me, Chancellor, do you understand humanity's potential?" The silence grew heavy. The Chancellor snorted. "Your potential? You are broken. Your cities are ashes. Your armies gone. You surrendered. There is nothing to understand." Elias tilted his head. "Then you should check again." Gasps spread across the hall. Some rulers whispered to their aides. Others checked their datapads. The phrase rule number 1 flashed on screens that hadn't shown it in centuries. The law was old, forgotten, written long before half the council members were born. But it was still valid. Still binding. The Chancellor slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. Humanity has no right to speak of rules." Elias's voice remained calm. "You asked for surrender. I offer it. But according to your own laws, you cannot accept it until you understand us. Tell me, Chancellor, do you?" For a moment, even the red star outside seemed to pause. The alien rulers looked at each other, unsure. None of them knew what to say. Elias looked around the vast hall, his eyes scanning faces of hundreds of alien species, some covered in scales, some made of light, others hidden behind metal masks. "You think surrender means weakness," he said quietly. "But for humans, surrender is only a word. It does not mean we stop fighting. It means we start thinking." The Chancellor leaned forward. "You dare to threaten this council?" Elias shook his head. "No. I am only reminding you. Humanity never fights the same war twice. You destroyed our ships. You burned our cities. But you never understood why we build what we build. You never asked what comes after defeat. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Some of the younger alien officers checked their data screens again. Strange readings began to appear from deep space, disturbances near the outer colonies. Unexplained signals. Elias turned slightly, as if listening to something far away. Then he smiled faintly. I came to give you our surrender. But perhaps you should wait before you accept it. And then he said again, slowly, clearly, so every corner of the hall heard it, check rule number 1. He turned his back to the Chancellor and walked toward the exit. No one stopped him. No one spoke. The High Chancellor felt a strange chill crawl up his spine, a feeling he had never known before. Fear. Far away, in the darkness beyond known space, something answered the human diplomat's calm words. A signal pulsed through the void, silent but alive. The galaxy would soon learn what human potential really meant. And the laughter that once filled the galactic court began to fade. The Council of 10 Worlds did not sleep that night. For the first time in centuries, fear and confusion filled the galactic court. The phrase, rule number 1, echoed through every channel, every report, every mind. None of the current rulers had ever cared to read the ancient codes. They had forgotten the law that once kept balance in the galaxy. But now, because of one quiet human, that law had returned. The High Chancellor paced inside his private chamber, his crystal skin glowing dim with anger. Find out what this rule means, he ordered his aides. And find out what that human is planning. His voice shook, though he tried to hide it. Across the hallways, alien officers rushed to old archives, searching dusty files from thousands of years ago. They found the words carved in silver. No race may claim dominion over another until it has understood its full potential. The words were clear, final, and unbreakable. To ignore it would mean violating the very foundation of the Galactic Accord. Meanwhile, Elias Kane sat quietly inside his small quarters on the human ship. He stared out the window at the red star that burned below the court. His hands were steady, his breathing calm. He had done what he came to do. Humanity's plan was already in motion, far beyond this star system. He whispered to himself, "They've forgotten their own rules. But we haven't." On the council floor, panic turned into pride. The younger members demanded that humanity be erased completely. "One law cannot protect a dying race," shouted Lord Vareth, a reptilian warlord from the Outer Rings. "The Accord is outdated." Others agreed, but the older rulers remained silent. They had lived long enough to know the danger of ignoring old laws, especially laws written in fear of something once seen in humanity. The next morning, Elias was summoned again. The chamber was darker this time, the laughter gone. The Chancellor's eyes glowed with cold fury. "Elias Kane," he said slowly, "you use ancient words to delay your extinction. But this council is not bound by the past." Elias looked up calmly. "You say that, yet your empire exists because of that past. Every planet here is ruled under the Accord. Every law you follow began with those words. Without rule number 1, your council is just another army pretending to be peacekeepers." The Chancellor slammed his hand down. "You dare lecture us?" Elias didn't flinch. "I dare remind you," he said quietly, "that you broke your own code long before we arrived." The room fell silent again. Some of the rulers shifted uneasily. They all knew it was true. Over time, the Council had enslaved weaker species, forced them to serve, and claimed their resources in the name of galactic order. But according to the Accord, those acts were illegal. Rule number 1 forbade conquest without understanding, and none of them had ever cared to understand the species they ruled. The Chancellor's voice hardened. "Enough. The Council will vote. Humanity will be erased from the record, and your words will die with you." Elias smiled faintly. "You can erase names, not truth." He stepped forward. "Tell me, Chancellor, What do you think human potential is? The Chancellor laughed bitterly. Your potential? To destroy yourselves? To burn your own world? You are chaos made flesh. Elias nodded slowly. Yes. We destroy. We rebuild. We fall. We rise. That is our nature. You see chaos. I see evolution. His calmness unsettled them. Even the guards hesitated. One of the elder rulers, an ancient being of light known as Seraph, spoke for the first time. Chancellor, I recall the first human contact, 500 years ago. They were small, unprepared, yet curious. Within 2 centuries, they mastered technologies that took us millennia. Rule number 1 was written because of them. Our ancestors feared their hunger to learn. Perhaps they were right to fear. The Chancellor growled. Old stories. Humanity is finished. Elias turned toward Seraph and bowed slightly. Your ancestors understood something the rest of you forgot. Humanity's strength is not power or numbers. It is the ability to become something new when cornered. Every fall makes us different. Every defeat builds something unseen. The hall buzzed with low murmurs. The alien leaders exchanged uncertain glances. Then the communication officer rushed into the chamber, panic in his eyes. Chancellor, he shouted. Long-range sensors detected energy bursts from the Sol system. Unknown signals, non-standard frequency. Elias closed his eyes for a second, then opened them slowly. Right on time, he whispered. The Chancellor spun toward him. What have you done? Elias simply smiled. Nothing. Just reminded my people who they are. Screens flickered to life around the hall, showing distant space around Earth. The planet still looked broken, but something shimmered above its orbit. Faint lights. Moving patterns. The signals grew stronger. The Chancellor barked. Jam it! Shut it down! But the images didn't fade. Instead, new shapes began to appear. Machines of unknown design, forming slowly in orbit, as if building themselves from fragments of light. Elias turned back to the council. You laughed at our surrender, he said quietly. You thought the war was over. You were wrong. Humanity doesn't surrender because it's weak. We surrender because it's the fastest way to make you stop looking. The hall erupted in chaos. Alarms blared. Reports came in from different sectors. Human colonies that were supposed to be dead were sending signals again. Long-dormant AIs had reactivated. Old ships, abandoned in asteroid belts, powered up. Elias began walking toward the exit again, guards unsure whether to stop him. Rule number 1, he said softly, without turning back. Understand before you rule. You never understood us. Now you will. The Chancellor shouted after him. What are you? What are your people planning? Elias paused at the doorway. Planning? Nothing complicated, he said. Just reminding the galaxy why rule number 1 was written in the first place. He walked out into the light, leaving the chamber filled with confusion, fear, and the sound of distant alarms. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's surrender. Now, it would learn what it meant to laugh too soon. The alarms kept echoing through the galactic court as the council struggled to understand what was happening. The red star outside flickered, casting long shadows across the chamber walls. The reports coming in made no sense. Dead human colonies were suddenly sending energy readings higher than anything recorded before. Broken satellites near Jupiter had come online. Old transmission beacons across human space were reactivated, all repeating one message: Rule number 1 acknowledged. The Chancellor shouted at his officers, demanding explanations, but no one could give him one. It was as if the dead had started to speak. Far away from the court, deep in the void between galaxies, massive human structures that had been drifting silent for years began to awaken. Machines built with technology unknown to the Council started to hum again. Their purpose was unclear, but their design was unmistakable: human. Humanity, it seemed, had never truly died. Elias Kane walked calmly through the corridors of the Galactic Court as chaos spread around him. Guards rushed past, shouting orders, scanning for invisible threats, but he moved like a man who already knew the ending. He reached his ship, still guarded by 2 alien soldiers. "You're not allowed to leave," one of them said, but his voice trembled. Elias looked at them and smiled softly. "I'm not leaving," he said. "I'm watching." He sat on a bench near the ship's door and stared at the glowing red horizon beyond the transparent walls. "You don't understand what's happening, do you?" The guards said nothing. "That's fine," Elias continued. "No one ever does, until it's too late." Back inside the council chamber, Sereth, the ancient being of light, hovered near the chancellor. "We must reconsider," he said, his voice echoing like soft thunder. "If the humans have awakened old machines, it means they prepared for this moment long before the war ended. This was never surrender. It was a strategy." The chancellor turned sharply. "Strategy. They lost. We destroyed their fleets, their defenses, their planet." Saratha's glow dimmed slightly. "And yet, they are still here." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, strange events unfolded. On a forgotten moon once used as a human mining colony, enormous metallic structures rose from the dust. They had been buried deep beneath the surface, hidden by humans decades before the war. Now they were coming to life, powered by energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. On a human research station orbiting Neptune, a single computer terminal flickered to life. The screen displayed one line of text: "Awakening Protocol, Phase 2 initiated." Back on the human ship, Elias closed his eyes and whispered, "It's starting." His communicator blinked softly. A female voice came through, distant and faint, but calm. "Ambassador, confirmation received. All sites responding. The network is stable." Elias nodded. "Proceed to next phase. Do not engage yet." The voice replied, "Understood. Humanity sleeps no longer." The signal ended. In the council, the panic grew. The chancellor tried to project confidence, but his voice betrayed fear. "Deploy the fleets," he commanded. "Destroy anything that moves in human space." But the commanders hesitated. "Sir," one of them said, "our ships near Sol System have lost contact. It's as if space itself has changed." The chancellor's eyes widened. "What do you mean changed?" The officer swallowed hard. "Sensors can't read anything. Distances, gravity, even time, it's unstable. It's like the humans bent space around their system." Elias, still seated near his ship, watched the stars beyond the glass begin to shift slightly, as if the universe itself was moving. He whispered to himself, "Project Veil, successful." He thought back to the early days of the war, before humanity's fall. A secret program had been developed by Earth's last scientists, a network of hidden AIs designed to survive even if humanity did not. Each AI was buried deep in old colonies, coded to stay silent until a specific phrase was triggered. That phrase had been spoken by Elias inside the council chamber. Check rule number 1. The moment those words were broadcast through the court's network, they were carried across the galaxy, activating the hidden network. Humanity's final plan had begun. Sereth finally confronted the chancellor. "This war is over," he said quietly. "You think the humans lost, but what if this was their victory all along? What if they made you believe they were gone so they could rebuild unseen?" The chancellor slammed his fist again. "They are a dying species. They cannot stand against the council." Saratha's glowing form flickered like a fading flame. "Then tell me, Chancellor, why do I feel the pulse of a new power rising from their ashes?" Across human space, the transformation continued. The machines once used for mining asteroids reshaped themselves into ships. Their surfaces shimmered like liquid metal, merging with light. They were not piloted by humans. They were humans, or at least what humanity had become. Consciousness uploaded, merged, evolved. The war that had destroyed their bodies had forced them to take the next step. Humanity had turned its extinction into evolution. Back at the court, the communication officer ran in again, his face pale. Chancellor! The human signals, they're transmitting messages to our fleets. What messages? The Chancellor demanded. The officer hesitated. They're welcoming us. The chamber fell silent. They're saying, welcome to the next stage of understanding. Elias stood, finally ready to leave. The guards didn't stop him this time. Tell your leaders, he said softly, that this is not a war. This is a reminder. You cannot rule what you cannot understand. And you never understood us. He stepped onto his ship, the doors closing behind him. The engines flared, glowing blue against the crimson light of the dying star. As his ship disappeared into the void, the council's screens filled with images of the new human fleets rising from the shadows of space. They were vast, silent, and alive, ships grown, not built. The galaxy trembled as an ancient truth returned: humanity never truly loses. It only changes. And now, as the stars shifted around the Sol system, it was clear: the galaxy had just awakened something it could never control. The galaxy had not seen such silence in thousands of years. Fleets that once patrolled the borders of empires now stood motionless, their commanders staring at the strange new shapes forming near human space. The transmission screens flickered with static, distorted by powerful energy waves that bent the laws of physics. Every sensor, every probe, every ship that tried to enter the Sol system vanished without a trace. The Galactic Council gathered again, this time in fear, not arrogance. The chamber was dark, filled with uneasy murmurs. The High Chancellor's voice cracked as he demanded reports. "What are those things?" he shouted. "Why can't we detect them properly?" The Science Minister, pale and trembling, replied, "We believe the humans are using something beyond our technology. It's not just cloaking, it's rewriting reality around them. Space itself refuses to show us what's inside." The Chancellor slammed his fist on the table. Impossible! Humans never had this kind of power. But deep down, he already knew something had changed forever. Elias Kane's ship drifted through the darkness, following the trail of signals leading back to Earth. He sat alone in the cockpit, watching faint blue lights appear one by one in the distance. Each light represented a reborn human world, reactivated after decades of silence. His communicator beeped, and a familiar voice spoke. "Ambassador, this is Athena Station. All protocols are online. The network is stable. Awaiting your command." Elias smiled faintly. "Not yet," he said. "Let them come to us first." He leaned back, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. Entire regions glowed faintly blue, showing where humanity's hidden systems had come back online. Every colony the Council thought was destroyed was now active. The war had never been a loss, it had been a cocoon. Humanity had used defeat to transform. On the other side of the galaxy, panic spread. The Council's fleets assembled near the border of human space, their engines burning bright. Massive warships armed with plasma cannons waited for the order to attack. But as they advanced, their scanners began to fail. Time distorted. Ships moved slower, then faster, then vanished from sensors entirely. Crews reported seeing reflections of themselves in space, ghost images of their own ships appearing and disappearing. One captain screamed over the comms, "It's like the stars are watching us." Then his signal went dead. The fleet vanished without a trace. In the council chamber, Sereth hovered silently, his light dim and sorrowful. "You cannot fight this," he said softly. "This is no longer the humanity we once knew. They have evolved beyond flesh and fear." The Chancellor turned on him angrily. "Then what are they?" Sereth's form flickered. "Perhaps the next step. Perhaps the warning we ignored." Elias's ship entered the edge of the Sol system. What he saw took his breath away. Earth was still scarred, but around it floated hundreds of enormous structures, rings of light and metal, forming a glowing web that surrounded the planet like a shield. Energy flowed through them in slow waves, like the breathing of a giant. The sun itself burned brighter, its radiation drawn into the network and transformed into power. And within that power, Elias could feel something living. Humanity had merged with its machines. Millions of minds connected through the network, no longer bound by body or distance. They were one. A soft voice filled his ship, not from any speaker but from the air itself. "Welcome home, Elias." He smiled. "So, it worked." The voice replied, "Yes. Humanity is awake. The collective remembers everything." Elias nodded slowly. "The council will come for us." The voice grew firm. "Then they will learn what rule number 1 truly means." Back in the council chamber, the Chancellor's advisors screamed for action. "We must strike now before they spread. Destroy their system before it's too late." But Sereth spoke again. "You still don't understand. Every time you attack humanity, you only teach them how to win the next battle. What you see now is the result of every war you ever fought against them." The Chancellor growled, "Enough," and ordered the largest fleet in history to move toward Earth. Thousands of ships jumped into hyperspace, vanishing in streaks of light. Moments later, they arrived at the edge of the Sol system. And then they stopped. The human network pulsed once, a wave of light rippling through space. Every alien ship froze mid-flight. Their engines shut down. Their weapons powered off. Communications died. The fleet hung still, trapped in invisible threads of gravity and time. On board one ship, a commander shouted, "We've lost control. Something is in our systems. It's rewriting our codes." The lights dimmed, and a single message appeared on every screen. "Understanding is the first step to peace." In the council chamber, the Chancellor watched in horror as his entire fleet became silent. "What have they done?" he whispered. Sereth answered, "They're showing mercy. They could destroy you, but they're choosing to teach you instead." The Chancellor stared at the screen where the human network pulsed like a living heartbeat. "Mercy? You call this mercy?" Sereth's glow brightened. "Yes. Because if they wished, they could unmake you with a thought." Elias watched from his ship as the alien fleet floated helplessly near the edge of human space. He opened a channel to the council. "This is Elias Kane, Ambassador of Humanity," he said calmly. "We do not wish for war. We never did. But you must understand what happens when arrogance meets evolution. You laughed when we surrendered. You thought we were finished. But surrender was never defeat. It was strategy. We gave you victory so we could learn how to overcome it." The Chancellor's trembling voice replied, "What do you want?" Elias looked toward Earth, its new light shining like a second sun. "We want you to remember rule number 1. You cannot rule what you do not understand. And you never understood us." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in silence once more. Across the stars, every being, great or small, watched in awe as the light from Earth grew stronger, spreading through the void like dawn breaking across an endless night. Humanity was awake, reborn not in conquest, but in purpose. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy trembled as the news spread. The fleets of the Galactic Council, once feared across 1,000 worlds, had been stopped without a single shot fired. Entire armadas hung motionless in space, powerless and silent, their systems frozen by human technology no one could understand. In every sector, people whispered the same words, "Humanity is awake." The phrase became both a warning and a prayer. In the great chamber of the Galactic Court, the High Chancellor stood before a sea of frightened rulers. His once proud voice was now brittle with fear. "This cannot stand," he declared. "We are the Council. We are order. No primitive race will humiliate us like this." But even as he shouted, he knew the truth. Order had shifted. The balance of power that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was breaking, and the cracks had a human shape. Elias Kane appeared on the central display, his image calm and clear. Behind him glowed the radiant web surrounding Earth, a symbol of something far greater than war. You call us primitive, he said softly, but it was your arrogance that blinded you. You saw our weapons, our ships, our struggles, but never our will. You destroyed our bodies, but not our ideas. You forgot that every defeat teaches us more than victory ever could. His words echoed through the chamber like thunder in still air. Some rulers shouted in anger, others lowered their heads in silence. Sereth, the ancient being of light, drifted forward and faced the chancellor. You cannot fight them anymore, he said. They have reached a place beyond your understanding. The chancellor glared at him. Then explain them, old one. Explain what they have become. Sereth's glow flickered faintly. They are no longer one species. They are many minds joined together. Their evolution is unity. They have turned pain into power, loss into learning. They are not our enemies, they are our reminder. As the council argued, more reports arrived. Human influence was spreading. Machines across abandoned sectors had reactivated, guided by the collective consciousness. Dying planets began to heal as nanotech swarms rebuilt their surfaces. Lost colonies once considered barren now showed signs of life. The same race that once burned its own world was now restoring others. Yet, not everyone saw this as peace. Some council members called it invasion. They will consume us, one shouted. They will turn every world into one of their hives. The chancellor agreed. This is not peace, it's domination through deceit. We must strike before they expand further. Elias watched from his ship as the council prepared for another attack. He sighed quietly. They still don't understand, he murmured. Athena's voice echoed softly through the cabin. They fear what they cannot control. Elias nodded. Yes, but fear is a choice. And they have chosen wrong. Moments later, massive flashes lit up the darkness as the council launched new fleets. This time, they used experimental weapons, energy spheres capable of ripping holes in space. The chancellor watched proudly as his armada moved toward Earth, believing that sheer force could overcome evolution. But when the weapons reached the border of human space, they dissolved, swallowed by invisible fields of energy. Not one reached its target. Then the human network responded. No missiles. No beams. Just silence. One by one, the council's ships began to shut down again. But this time, something different happened. Instead of destruction, their systems rebooted. Every ship's computer displayed a single message: learn. The crews looked around, terrified. The message changed again: understand before you act. The same phrase repeated across thousands of ships. Then, without warning, every vessel was transported, not across space, but into a shared vision. The crews found themselves standing on an endless field of stars, surrounded by faint figures made of light. Voices spoke, not one, but millions, merging into a single harmony. You called yourselves rulers, the voices said. You believed power was control. But power is knowledge. And knowledge is what you never sought. Back in the council chamber, the chancellor and the others saw the same vision appear before their eyes. Elias stood among the lights, though his body was not truly there. This is the lesson, he said. Humanity's strength is not in what we build, but in what we learn from every fall. You feared us because we changed too quickly. But change is life. Stagnation is death. The chancellor, trembling with rage, shouted, You think you can judge us? You think you can teach us like children? Elias looked at him sadly. I don't think. I know. Because you once taught us the same way, through pain. The vision faded, and everyone returned to reality. The fleets were still. The galaxy was quiet again. The chancellor collapsed into his chair, defeated not by weapons, but by understanding. Sereth floated beside him. They offered you peace, he said softly. And you answered with fear. That is your price. Elias's ship hovered near the edge of the human network. Athena's voice spoke again. They will try again. Elias nodded. Yes. But now they know what they face. Rule number 1 still stands. He opened a channel to the entire galaxy, his voice calm but unshakable. We do not seek to rule, he said. We seek to remember. The galaxy forgot the first rule. We reminded it. Humanity will not conquer. We will guide. We will teach. And we will protect the balance you abandoned. Across countless worlds, beings of every race listened. Some felt hope. Others felt fear. But all of them understood that the age of the council was ending, and something new was beginning. The Chancellor looked at the fading hologram of Elias and whispered bitterly, "You think you've won." The words reached Elias's ears through the network, and he smiled faintly. "No," he said. "We all win, if you learn." The human network pulsed one final time, sending waves of light across the stars. The ships that had attacked returned unharmed, drifting back to their home systems with full power restored. The message was clear: humanity had no need to destroy. The warning was enough. Across the galaxy, whispers spread once more. "They could have ended us," someone said. "But they didn't." Sereth, watching the starfield outside the court, whispered softly, "That is why they will endure, when all others fade." And far beyond the reach of the council, Elias stood before Earth's shining web, gazing at the stars. "We gave them a chance," he said quietly. Athena responded, "Will they take it?" Elias's eyes reflected the blue light of the network. "That depends," he whispered, "on whether they finally understand rule number 1. The galaxy was forever changed. The war that had begun with fire and destruction ended in silence and understanding. For the first time in history, no fleets moved, no armies marched, and no planet burned. Every race, from the smallest moon colony to the oldest empire, watched the shimmering light of Earth's new network spread across the stars. The humans had not built a weapon. They had built a mirror, a reflection of everything the galaxy had become. It showed them their greed, their pride, their endless hunger for control. And in that reflection, the galaxy saw itself for what it was, afraid of what it could not dominate. The Council of 10 Worlds, once the rulers of everything known, sat in their grand chamber under the crimson glow of the dying star. The High Chancellor looked older, his once golden skin now dull and cracked. He spoke softly, as though the weight of the universe rested on his tongue. "We underestimated them," he said. "We thought they were finished, but they were only becoming something greater." None of the rulers answered. There was nothing left to say. They had mocked humanity, enslaved their worlds, and erased their name from the records. And yet, here they were, standing at the center of creation once more. Elias Kane appeared before the council for the last time. His image projected through a beam of soft blue light. He wore the same gray suit as before, but now his presence carried something vast and unmeasurable. He was no longer just a man. He was the voice of billions, the voice of the collective. "You have seen what happens when arrogance replaces wisdom," he said. "For centuries, you claimed to rule this galaxy, but you never understood it. You called yourselves leaders, yet you forgot the first rule that made leadership possible." The Chancellor raised his tired eyes. "Rule number 1, he murmured. Elias nodded slowly. "Yes. Understand before you rule. You broke that rule the moment you saw us as tools, as weapons, as lesser beings. You tried to command without comprehension. And that is why your empire has crumbled from within." The hall was silent. No one dared to breathe. Sereth, the ancient being of light, floated forward. "Elias Kane," he said softly, "the council admits its failures. But tell us, what happens now? Will humanity rule where we have fallen?" Elias shook his head. "No. Humanity does not seek to rule. We learned too well the cost of power. Our purpose is not to dominate, it is to remember. To ensure that no race, no mind, no being forgets the lessons that built this galaxy." The Chancellor's voice trembled. "And if we forget again?" Elias's eyes darkened, though his voice remained calm. "Then the stars themselves will remind you. Because humanity is no longer confined to one world. We are everywhere the lesson is needed. Outside the chamber, the light of Earth's network grew brighter, spreading through space like living veins of energy. It touched the moons of distant systems, revived lost satellites, and restored forgotten archives of ancient civilizations. Knowledge once buried by war began to flow freely again. The galaxy was healing, not by force, but through connection. On countless worlds, children of every species looked to the night sky and saw new constellations forming, the outline of a human hand reaching outward. Some saw it as a symbol of peace, others as a warning. But all understood its message: understanding before control. Meanwhile, on the edge of the Sol system, Elias stood aboard his ship, gazing at the Earth below. The planet was no longer broken. The skies had cleared, the oceans shimmered blue once more, and cities built of light and metal floated peacefully among the clouds. Humanity had become one mind, one heart. They no longer fought for survival. They created for meaning. Athena's voice filled the ship. The Council has submitted its declaration. The accord will be rewritten with Rule Number 1 at its beginning. Elias smiled faintly. Good. It should never have been forgotten. Athena hesitated. And you, Elias? What will you do now? He looked out at the stars. I will do what humans have always done. Wonder. Learn. Begin again. In the Galactic Court, Sereth watched as the other rulers signed the new accord. The Chancellor placed his trembling hand on the document and whispered, "For the first time, we are not rulers. We are students." Sereth's light flickered warmly. That is how peace begins. When the signing was complete, a soft chime echoed through the hall. A beam of light shot upward, merging with the starlight above, linking the Council's homeworld to Earth's network. The galaxy was whole again. As Elias prepared to leave orbit, the voice of the collective spoke through him one last time, carried across every frequency, to every mind capable of thought. To all who hear this, the voice said, remember what was lost and why it was lost. Rule Number 1 is not a command, it is a promise. To understand before you act. To see before you judge. To listen before you rule. The galaxy has paid the price for forgetting it. Never again. The words rippled through the stars like a wave, imprinted into the very energy fields that bound space together. No ruler could erase them. No empire could hide from them. The High Chancellor looked up at the ceiling of the Great Hall, where the red star's light had dimmed to a soft glow. He has won, he whispered. Sereth corrected him gently. No. We have learned. Elias's ship turned away from Earth and vanished into the darkness, leaving behind trails of blue light. He did not look back. Humanity did not need monuments or crowns, they had left behind something greater, understanding. And as he disappeared among the stars, a faint whisper crossed the galaxy, heard by every living thing, carried by the very breath of creation itself. Never laugh at those who still have something to learn. Because humans always do. The stars burned brighter that night, as if bowing in silent agreement. The galactic age of rule had ended. The age of understanding had begun. And at its heart, written in light and memory, one truth would forever remain. Rule Number 1. Understand before you rule.